The purpose of this video is to talk about issues of social justice in the music education system and relate them back to the articles assigned in class. One article being Beyond the Methods Fetish Towards a Humanizing Pedagogy by Bartolome, and the other article by Dr. Abrahams entitled Hosanna, Hanukkah, and Hegemony, Anti-Semitism in the Music Classroom. The Abrahams article talks about how Jews are, despite being very assimilated to American culture, they are often oppressed by our everyday interactions. This is evident through just the fact that our school calendars are very much revolving around the Christian calendar and Christian holidays. He gives the example of how Yom Kippur, one of the highest, most holy days, is not always represented in the school calendar, and oftentimes kids are expected to come and perform for, in this case it was the marching band and a football team. But this wouldn't necessarily be the case for a Christian holiday such as Christmas. In Dr. Abraham's article, he notes Jung's 5 faces of oppression, numbering them powerlessness, exploitation, marginalization, cultural imperialism, and violence. It's not always the case that educators intend to be oppressive when we are going about our lesson planning. I know lots of teachers try to incorporate multiculturalism and teach to the minority groups of the population and of the classroom, just the classroom makeup, but it's not always something that might be intended. A lot of oppression comes from ignorance or just because we're so used to doing something that it becomes the status quo. Lots of music educators especially teach based on methods or the way that they were taught because it's something that's familiar to them, and for that reason it just keeps perpetuating and nothing ever really gets questioned or fixed. Hegemony occurs when those in power impose unfair, unjust, and unethical practices, policies, or procedures on those not in power. When people accept such circumstances as the norm, the practice is legitimized. Although it is important to identify useful and promising instructional programs and strategies, it is erroneous to assume that blind replication of instructional programs or teacher mastery of particular teaching methods in and of themselves will guarantee successful student learning. One of the best ways to find out what's important to our students is to ask them what they're interested in or what their beliefs are. This is a way to introduce critical pedagogy to the classroom, where the tenets of critical pedagogy ask the questions of who am I as the teacher, who are my students, what might my students become, and what might the student and the teacher become together. Seasoned teachers know that the key to successful teaching and learning is to make the process meaningful. One of the best ways to do this is to use the varied experiences of students' cultural, social, and so forth to develop real-life examples and encourage discussion. When choosing to study or perform music from semantic traditions, teachers should remember Kodai's insistence that repertoire be of a high quality and should resist the exploitive nature of those pieces of music written for school study which are trivial and devoid of musical authenticity and substance. One of the things that I kept thinking back on when I was reading these articles is my student teaching experience and how we went about teaching music, especially for the winter concert, with such a diverse population of students. And we called it a winter concert, we didn't call it the Christmas concert. And we made it a point to represent the music of different cultures that were represented within our student population. What I mean when I say informants rather than performance is at this particular concert, I think that my co-op really had amazing idea to try and overstep the ignorance or just the oversight of the general Christian population by trying to inform others on what the different religions were celebrating at that time during the winter. We had the children come up and introduce the piece, and of course they were volunteers, and we had one piece for Diwali and we had one piece for Hanukkah, and these kids were able to share what their culture and what their beliefs were and inform the rest of the audience, all while introducing the next piece. And I think that that is something that's really, it's what we should be striving for. We're trying to share things through our music making, and I think that this concert really prepared the kids for later on in life, as well as informing a huge audience that was just sitting there waiting to hear pretty music. And I think that that is something that I'm really going to take with me when I'm considering how I'm going to plan a curriculum for my music and choir class.